What are the challenges of driving higher sales from channel partner education, and how can we overcome them? And maybe Jeff, you can start out with that.
Thanks, Gordon. Well, for starters, I always like to think of a customer or partner training program as a product. And that means it needs, like any other product, it needs a marketing strategy. And to start with, I come at it from a vision of where do you position this from an awareness standpoint, an engagement standpoint, and an advocacy standpoint.
Mhm.
So from the awareness side of things, we think about how busy our channel partners are in their day-to-day business. So how do you even let them know about your training program? How do you get them into it? And then how do you get them to keep coming back to it? And so, of course, our platform offers some incentives to incentivize the registration process, friend referrals, and the whole point of all of that is to help the parent company and their marketing team to drive that channel partner awareness about the opportunities that they have to further their training. So that's kind of the first step. The second one is around engagement. And the frameworks that we work from is that none of these people have to take your training. There's no requirement. It's not mandatory. So how do you get them to come in and consume your existing content, as well as if you're developing new products and new content around them, how do you get them to continually come back and learn more about them? And so we incentivize the content consumption strategy as a big part of what we do. Is thinking about how do you position your company as the go-to place to train about products, but also maybe professional knowledge that will help the people develop further in their industry. And what we find, a lot of companies see a shortage of people coming into the industry they have their kind of surface level knowledge, but really as the industry advances, is positioning your training as a place where you build trust with your channel partners, you become the source of knowledge for the industry, and it just helps you position your products, as you said, top of mind in your channel partners and really capture that mind share.
Mhm.
And then the last piece is around advocacy. Is after you establish this training program, how do you then take your channel partners and then help build brand champions out of them? And I don't know if you've ever tried to do this before, get testimonials and some feedback from your customers, but it's incredibly hard. So what we found to be very successful is to incentivize the advocacy piece. So reward testimonials and selfies and videos. Have your channel partners speak about your training program, about their experience, maybe about the incentives that they've earned. And then that can be obviously used by the marketing team to drive further awareness. And it's really it's a flywheel. It's a flywheel of a marketing strategy around training that ultimately gets people more aware about your products. They're better equipped to sell them. Their product knowledge is improved. And then really you capture that mind share, and we just see really explosive growth in the number of people taking the training, but also in the revenue side of things. And then I'd kind of finish off on that. Everything that we do in a training program in terms of the marketing side, it needs to tie directly into the sales and the revenue side. So being very focused on what are the challenges, what are the solutions, but ultimately what's the impact on revenue when we let this play out for a while.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's my thoughts on the first question, but I'd love to hear from John and Brett.
John?
Well, I agree with all of that. That is a great way to look at it in terms of a product. One of the things I always come back to when I work with clients that are with partners and channel learning is that it's so different than employee learning, in the sense that employee learning, you can have long courses, you can have boring courses, you can have boring content, and you can just make your employees take that. And they really don't have much to say about it. It's just a mandatory thing. But with channel partners, the biggest frustration or the biggest reality is there's no time. There is no time for training. And if you represent, multiple product lines from multiple companies, there's even less time for training. So the training can't be the way that learning and professional development professionals have done for years of making an hour-long SCORM course. You have to adapt to this lack of time, and you have to adapt to that through adaptive learning. So knowing exactly what your partners are, what they've trained before, lots of demographics that are coming out of the PRM or the CRM system to really feed them just the knowledge they need at the time that they need it. That's a way that you can overcome that lack of time and make your training very useful, that product very useful to them, so that they see that connection to their daily life and their work. And so, just anecdotally, I had a client one time that was a reseller of dealer or high big machinery equipment, excavator equipment, and they told me that their average dealer salesperson has 2 to 3 minutes a week for training. And so that's just a different mindset that professionals creating training need to do to get that training to their channel partners in the smallest chunks possible when they need it. And that'll help drive higher sales through education. What do you think about that, Brett?
Absolutely. TikTok has really changed the way people think about consuming content and information, and it's rapid fire. It's very quick. Some of the most popular videos on Facebook and YouTube are these little 15-second, 30-second, 1-minute videos that you can consume and get on with the rest of your day. But one thing I would mention that you talked about earlier, Jeff, is I've always known, I've been doing this for 20 years, and there's only 2 ways to get people to do training: threats and bribes. That's it. You can threaten them or you can bribe them. You can't threaten partners. They don't work for you. What you can do is you can bribe the partner organizations. Maybe I'll give you a better margin on the deals that you close after you reach your training goals. Maybe I'll give you a logo to put on your website to identify you as a standout partner. Maybe I'll give you a higher result when people come searching for partners to buy from. If you bribe the partner organization, then the partner CEO, they become the person that distributes the threat to the employees that work for them to complete the training. I know it's not sexy. I know it's not fair, but it's obvious, right? So I think there's always levels of encouragement you can give the partner organization as a whole to make them want to achieve your training goals. You have to light a fire under them. You have to give them a reason. If you build it, they're not going to come. There's got to be a reason for them to be there. And again, Jeff's whole world is around incentivizing the individuals as well. So there needs to be something in it for the person that's actually taking the time to do the training.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think your incentive program has to be twofold. Of you have to bribe the individuals, but then the organization needs a reason to enforce those bribes from their standpoint. So it's always looking at it at 2 levels, I find, is a best practice.
It's not pretty, but it's true, right? I mean, let's face it. If you've got kids and they're in school, there's a reason that they're completing their training. They don't want to come home with bad grades. So there needs to be motivations.
Yeah, I agree with both what you're saying. And I think the interesting part in terms of the external training programs that we see, to your point, Brett, there are situations where companies will purchase, I'm going to say, software and then mandate it to their employees. So it's kind of bubbled under the customer education side of training, but it's really mandated because the purchase was made and then they mandate the training down there. So it feels more like, as you would say, the threat side of things. You must do this. I think of the L&D world as it falls under the threat side of things.
Absolutely.
Like there are consequences if you don't do this training. Whereas I think the external training, it just opens up a completely different sentiment and feeling, and you're trying to build that emotional connection between those partners with your company and your brand. And I think that's where the opportunity lies from. It feels more in the sense of I'll use your words, the bribe side of things.
Yep.
But really, if done correctly, those bribes, those incentives can offer a stack value to those people to either further develop their careers. Maybe it makes their daily job better or more comfortable. And I think that's where it's more of a recognition and appreciation that you're showing with these incentives that validate the people's investment of time that they're taking to learn about your products and services. That's how I see it as being different. The bribe being a bit of a strong word for the
that's a much nicer way to say it.
Yeah.
Incentive is a much nicer way of saying bribe.
Exactly.